Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack.
Different people need different spaces from their faces for the phone.
What fresh hell?
Laughing in the face of motherhood. They're not going to throw the conversation to someone they know is going to take it to Pokemon Town. With Margaret Abels
and Amy Wilson.
Don't just be like, I know what you're doing is interesting, but look at what I'm doing.
A podcast that solves today's parenting dilemmas
so you don't have to. There's 8 people in the room and 7 of them are talking. Like 3 people do not have a listener at this point.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Amy.
And this is Margaret. And today we're talking about when our kids are bad at making friends. I have a lot of thoughts about this.
This is a tough one, right? And it hits you in your soft places when you're a parent and you watch it happening.
Right in the feels, right in the... And it echoes as a kid who was bullied and had a hard time making friends. It's also, we need a word that is PTSD light. You know what I mean? Because I definitely know people who had bullying as children that was in the category of PTSD. It was serious. It was damaging. It was psychologically injurious to them. But what's the word? It like evokes my not quite PTSD, but my very, very bad memories of...
I believe that's a trigger. I believe a trigger is the word you're looking for. It triggers your own unpleasantness. Yes.
Yes. It triggers me in the feeling of both for myself, and my sister was bullied as a kid, my younger sister. And it also triggers for me that like helpless feeling of like watching someone, even though I was not nice to my sister as a kid, as I've established, it's still like nothing bothered me more than people being mean to her, you know?
Well, this isn't necessarily bullying. We have to revisit that. We're going to do a total bullying thing too. This is when it's your kid who's bad at it. And that, I think, is the first step. I mean, when we talk about how to break it down, how to figure out like, why is your kid bad at making friends? Is it the situation? Is it your kid? Because that's the first thing you have to accept that's a little bit hard. If you're calling the school or the camp counselor saying, everybody's being mean to my kid, and then the following year you're calling the school again, new group of kids, everybody's being mean to my kid. Or your kid at school is having trouble, everybody's being mean to me. Then your kid goes to scouts, everybody's being mean to me. You probably have something to look at there. It isn't like every kid in the world is mean and your kid's wonderful. It also doesn't mean your kid's mean. It just means your kid might be lagging in some of the skills necessary to make friends, which some kids are born with it and some kids need to study it carefully. Just like reading. Some kids learn to read on their own before they ever are taught it at school, and some kids need to learn it again and again and again to kind of get it. They need it really broken down for them.
Yep. And it's hard, I think, when you have kids who struggle with this. They tend to struggle in a lot of areas, and it just feels kind of like another brick in the hard wall, right? Like,
right.
Wait a minute. I want them to catch a break somewhere. And like, of course, you see your child as having all of these amazing qualities that you understand may be somewhat masked by some difficult behaviors, but that's not a strength often of young kids to be like, I see your true colors shining through.
Yeah. Oh, and as they get older, that gets a little bit more. It's like when in 5th or 6th grade, that the kids maybe suddenly become less tolerant of the kid who's always talking while the teacher's talking, who's always, that special sparkly kid gets a little more annoying as kids get older. And that's when this stuff can come into play. In that way, there's 100 reasons. Well, there maybe aren't 100 reasons. I think we have here about 8 reasons that kids can have trouble making friends. And I think helping them is dependent on really figuring out what's going on. Like that's the first step, is like, which kind of troublemaking friends kid might you have?
Yeah, I think that's a good starting place. And I think you're right to like take it away from bullying. It's an issue of kids who struggle from their side to make connections with peers. Yes.
Or to keep them. That's another, we're going to have some stuff from the ADHD dude who we've had on the show. I think he's great. His content's great. And he did a video that I'll link to in the show notes about when your ADHD kid has trouble keeping friends. He sort of separated out that piece. And I thought, that's right. That's a whole other thing. All right. So here are some of the reasons. We'll talk first about the reasons that kids can have trouble making or keeping, as the case may be, friends. The first one is if your kid is impulsive. If a kid is impulsive or hyperactive, they have trouble taking turns, both like in guided activities and in unguided activities. They're more emotionally reactive, so they get really angry when that was a foul, no, it wasn't. Like a little thing like that might make a kid who's impulsive more angry or suddenly very angry. It also might make that same kid slower to calm down. They can't let that stuff roll off their back, that they're it again. That might send them into angry tears, and then they kind of can't slough it off and go back to recess. Like it's ruined, the afternoon's ruined.
I have such a strong sense memory, as we say in the theater. But every Friday in first grade, so what are you in first grade? I was 6.
6 or 7, yeah.
Mrs. O'Rourke's class, we would have a spelling bee. And I would, the night before, going to bed, be like, do not cry if you lose the spelling bee. Do not cry if you lose the spelling bee.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. It's totally fine. It's just the Friday spelling bee. We would line up in the front of the class and have a spelling bee, and then you would get out. And I was usually, it's funny because I'm a horrible speller. Maybe this is why. I have a mental block. I was just writing some longhand stuff, and I'm like, I don't know how to spell any of these words. But I would usually get down to the last 5 kids standing. And then when I got out, I would start to cry. I could not control it. And then I'd be like, I have to go to the bathroom for a minute. And I would try to cover it. And I'm a very pale Irish lady. And so the rest of the day, my face was blotchy and people would be like, what's wrong? Are you crying? And I'm like, no, totally not. Nothing is bothering me.
Aw. At least you had nice friends to ask you if something was wrong.
Oh, no, that was the teachers, Amy.
It was evident. Oh, the teachers. So teachers only.
But right, people don't tend to want to include kids who cry, fuss, and scream every time things don't go their way. But some kids are wired that way, and it feels very unfair to us as the parents. Like,
I knew a kid who, like, sort of backyard games kid, who would always, as soon as things weren't going his way, feign an injury. I may have done this at certain times myself, like, oh, my ankle. And my kids were just like, his ankle's fine. It's every time that he's not winning the game we're playing right now. It's not tears, but it's an injury, which means the game has to stop.
Well, that's also, I think it's interesting that kids hit developmental milestones at very different times. And we talk about that a lot. And we also say that developmental milestones, it's okay to hit them at different times, but it can be hard when you still have the kid who's crying when they strike out later than the other kids. That can be a big differentiating thing. Like, we're all not doing that anymore. Even the kid who is still into Toy Story when the kids have moved on to Stranger Things, right? Like, being developmentally at a different level than other kids is part of this challenge.
That's a good one. And that's when I don't have it on this list, but being in a developmentally different stage than your peers, either physically or emotionally.
I think most of the things on this list, if I'm guessing, I haven't reviewed your list, Amy, I'm coming in cold, but I bet a lot of the things on this list can be tied back to developmental stuff.
Sure, like being in a slightly different place. Yes.
Yeah. That like a kid who cannot regulate about losing in a game, that's a developmental milestone that they haven't hit yet. and may be very, very delayed in hitting and may never hit. But a kid who can't take turns in a conversation, that's a developmental thing too, you know?
That's right.
And so I think a lot of this stuff does come down to the other kids have kind of moved past you.
So the self-regulation is sort of like impulsivity, but it's a little bit different, right? Like not being able to self-regulate, as you were saying, is like more like I can't take turns talking. I'm not noticing that I've been talking about Pokemon for 15 minutes without letting you tell me about your favorite Pokemon, or maybe you don't like Pokemon that much. I'm not really picking up on that because I'm just impulsive and I'm just going to go. Or the kind of kid who really has to be in charge of every game. That's a different kind of inflexibility, right? Not just the tearful moments when things don't go your way, but it has to be my game in the first place, or I have to be king of the castle or whatever, that I have to be in charge of every moment is a different kind of impulse control that can cause issues.
Right. And I think with a group of 5-year-olds, let's say playing soccer, everybody is kind of terrible. It's like a group of cats playing soccer. And then you'll find by 6th grade, let's say, that some of those kids are now extremely good at soccer and some of those kids are not. And that divide is extremely clear to the kids playing, to the point where they will never kick the ball to someone they know who's not good, you know?
Yeah, who won't score for their team, right?
Yeah, because kids are quite tuned into this stuff. And that's kind of a metaphor for like, they're not going to throw the conversation to someone they know is going to take it to Pokemon Town when they're, you know, in 6th grade or whatever.
Again, right. That's a good point. Inattentiveness is another reason that kids can have trouble making or keeping friends. They don't pick up on cues again, or they don't respond to invitations. Like, do you want to come play with us? Like, I don't know, you know, that kind of thing. They don't text back. They don't understand. They don't reciprocate. Now, no, I ask you if you want to sit next to me on the bus home, that kind of thing. They don't understand they're supposed to do that.
Developmental, by the way, developmental.
Yeah, it is a skill. I mean, it is a skill that I have had to learn. I don't identify as somebody who has struggled with inattentiveness, but I am inattentive to reciprocating friendships. You have to text somebody back. You can't leave it on read. Like, I'm bad about that kind of stuff. And it's a little bit of a like thing I have to make myself do. It's not out of indifference to the person. It's out of, I don't know what, indifference to the task or something. And it just becomes something you have to do. So those kids can struggle making friends if they don't pick up on how you show that you want to be friends with someone. Then there's social anxiety or shyness. I mean, are we calling shyness social anxiety now? Maybe we're kind of getting away from, oh, the kid's so shy. I put shyness or social anxiety, but I'm like, I kind of think it's just social anxiety. Kids who are actually anxious about engaging with others.
Yeah, and this is something, I come from a loud, chatty Irish family where like, we often say the problem in our household is that nobody has a listener. Like there's 7 people in the room. There's 8 people in the room and 7 of them are talking. Like 3 people do not have a listener at this point. But that's the water I was boiled in, you know?
Yes, me too.
And so I get almost confused by the term shyness and social anxiety. I so don't relate to that. And having now been raising kids, I see and meet kids who are tremendously shy. And it's something that I just point out I haven't really dealt with in my own life. And it's kind of a revelation to me. Like, oh, shy doesn't mean like, come on, Amy, join the party. And you're like, okay. You know, it's like they're like hiding behind their mom. They're, you know, 7th or 8th grade. They're really struggling with this. And it's interesting to me how when you don't deal with certain behaviors, I think of shyness as like, yeah, some people are shy, but you get over it. And it's not like that.
No, it's just like picky eating. Like it's not something to be shamed, but it's also not something to be like entirely accommodated. So like, okay, this kid always plays by themselves forever. They need help with it. They need structure and scaffolding and whatever, but they need compassion first of all.
I heard a line about this a long time ago. I believe it was from my sister-in-law, Christina, who I quote often, but she said, it's not a problem until it's a problem for you or them, about like shyness. Like it's okay to be shy. It's not a problem, but look for where it becomes a problem. Like a kid who wants to go to the dance, but couldn't possibly function there. Like a kid who wants to be on a sports team, but is way too shy to try out, and really looking for those places where that exists.
So those are the main reasons I think that kids can struggle with making friends. So let's take a break. When we come back, I want to give you the 5 unwritten social rules that some of these kids miss.
All right, I'm ready. We'll be right back.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. Okay, so you're going to hit me with the unwritten social rules that some kids miss.
Yes. And these are like obvious, but they're not obvious to everyone. I remember reading a long time ago about the steps in learning to count, why kids have to learn to count. And there's a couple of steps. You have to learn the words in order, right? 1, 2, 3. Then you have to learn that you count each thing in this group once. Then you learn that you count it only once, and you have to remember which ones you've counted already and which ones you haven't. And then you have to learn that once you've counted each thing once and only once and kept track of that, the highest and last number you say when there's nothing else to point to is the number of things. Like, all those are all separate realizations.
That's so funny. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? And they come to some kids.
It's like we say about husbands, about like signing up for camp. It's like a 9-step process.
It's a 9-step process.
Don't forget the medical forms.
And it drops from the sky for some kids, and other ones need to learn the 5 unwritten social rules. So this is Lexi Walters-Wright. She's a parenting writer. She wrote these for understood.org. I'll link them in the show notes, but they're good. Okay, the first one is you have to give people polite greetings and goodbyes.
Okay.
This is like inattentive kids, very socially anxious kids. Oh, I don't know. Impulsive kids, they go.
And I will also say young kids. I notice still with my tweens that this is still a, as we call it, developing skill, which is that someone will get in our car and it just always shocks me that they don't say hello to that person. And then I'm like, say hello to that hello person. It just always shocks me that has to be said.
My dad gave me and a couple of my friends rides to school every morning for high school because it was on the way to work for him. And it used to really absolutely infuriate him that these people were giving rides every morning didn't say good morning when they got in the car. They knew to say thank you when we got out of the car, but nobody said good morning, Mr. Wilson, when they got in the car. It drove him crazy, which at the time was like so much noise to me, but now I understand what he was talking about. Yeah, kids should know how to do that.
And these are like norm things too. This is customs and, but these change a little bit, that the greeting of an elder, I think some of this stuff is a little bit more out of its manners in a way that maybe kids these days, it's not as formal.
But say like your kid has somebody over for a play date, they should meet them at the door and say, "Hi, Henry, come in." And at the end, like, "Bye, Henry, thanks for coming." Like they should do that. And they don't necessarily, some kids just get it and some kids need to have that sort of explained to them.
Yes. I mean, my kids would never do that, but I get the general point.
It would, it would help in the terms, none of these make your kid a bad kid for not doing them. They're just things the kids may or may not pick up on that are in general helpful in the making friends category. Number 2, that you take turns talking.
I struggle with this still.
Don't interrupt. And respond to what the other person's saying. Don't just be like, "I know what you're doing is interesting, but look at what I'm doing."
But what I have to say is so interesting, Amy.
Right.
Yes. Don't interrupt and talk about something that's interesting to both of you, which if you have kids on the spectrum can be really tough. Mm-hmm. That it's not a problem with talking. It's a problem with talking about interests that are preferred to both of you, not just yourself.
It's tricky, right? And you found a friend when you both want to talk about Pokemon all the time.
Well, when we get to solutions, I will be talking about that, Amy.
So paying attention to others, this kind of bleeds into number 3. You pay attention to others. You listen when they speak. You read their body language and facial expressions. This is something that some kids do need explicit coaching and understanding around. We're getting to that. There's ways you can really coach kids through this stuff. To read somebody else that you're with, you match your behavior to what others are doing. In other words, being quiet while the teacher is talking. I thought, wow, I think I just did that as a kid. You don't talk while the teacher's talking because nobody else is. I'm going to do what everybody else is doing. Some kids need to have that explained to them.
And you talk to different people differently. That's a thing that kids often on the spectrum struggle with. That you talk to a priest different than you talk to your brother. You talk to the librarian differently than you talk to your mom.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That can be very tricky for kids developing. And all of these skills, by the way, are developing skills. A 2-year-old is not good at it at all. An 8th grader might be getting the hang of it. And then hopefully a young adult is quite good at it.
The 4th social rule that some kids need to have explained to them is important is to think about others before acting. Into this category is don't cut in line, wait your turn, and don't touch people without permission. I had a kid who had trouble with that.
Yep. Don't talk too close to other people's faces. Don't talk too loudly in other people's faces. We're working right now on when you show me something on your phone, the phone needs to be at least 8 inches away from my face. You do not run up and put a cell phone against my nose and start screaming, "Look at this." That's not something we do as humans.
Again, different people need different spaces from their faces for the phone. That's funny.
Yes. Mine is preferably like 9 feet, and I'm not interested in the video, but if I'm going to be, don't stick it right in my face.
I'd love it if you put your phone down on the table and invite me to pick it up and put it at a distance from my face that's comfortable for me.
We're miles from that, Amy. We're miles from that.
The last social rule is cooperation with others, that you follow directions, that you're flexible and open to new ideas. We call this yes and in the comedy business. Asking for help when you need it, just working with other people, that there's rules around these things. These are unwritten social rules. And for all the reasons we talked about in the first part, that your kid might be struggling for a lot of developmental reasons or whatever, these are the ways that it can play out, that they are probably breaking at least one of these unwritten social rules, which doesn't make them a bad kid. It just can get in the way of making and keeping friends.
Agree. A couple of things I want to reflect, having heard these rules.
Yes, please.
Number 1, a lot of this stuff is cultural. Some of this stuff is like exclusionary class issues. Like we speak quietly at the country club, and the way we know you belong at the country club is that you speak in this very quiet country club voice. Mm-hmm. So there are some negatives to these things as well, and there are some gatekeeping things that are involved here. There are a certain type of people who belong here, and it's because they really understand our very rigid social rules. That's a thing. For kids, maybe not so much, but I'm just trying to reflect that these rules are not 100% absolutes. Number 2 is that people who have kids on the spectrum are currently feeling very personally attacked by this list because it's all things that kids on the spectrum particularly tend to struggle with. Turn taking, paying attention to others, talking about things that other people are interested in. Talking, period, for some kids is challenging. Cooperation, all of these things can be really challenging for kids on the spectrum or who are super quirky or have special needs in other ways. And so I think that the reason I push back a little bit is, I usually come out on the side of like, you have to take your kids to the world, but it's also okay to look at the world and be like, maybe the most important thing about a person is not that they can adapt their behavior to the center of the bell curve.
Yeah. But I mean, I think most societies, people want you to listen to them while they're talking to you. I mean, there's like, be quiet while the teacher's talking. Maybe that's societal. I'm thinking of, I've been to China. People don't line up in China. They just all push. Like they don't have it's an interesting, I guess, sort of, communism. Like nobody's any different from anybody else. There's no hierarchical social order. So everybody's the same. And I was
when the subway comes, just go for it.
Just push, just go. Right. And you don't let the old lady go for it. Everybody's the same. And that's, yeah. So then that way it is cultural and societal. And that's an example of like not cutting in line. Yeah, you could have a kid who's like new in the United States who doesn't know the kids line up in the United States.
Yeah. And so I think it's always worth looking at these and saying like, where can I push back and where do I want my kid to really work on this skill? Because it might not be, if your kid is obsessed with Pluto facts about Pluto, very upset about Pluto being deplanetized. Let's say, I'm just pulling this example from I don't know where. The passion that is, you don't totally want to squash and be like, don't ever talk about Pluto. Only talk about Pokemon because that's what the kids are talking about. And you want to be that kind of kid. Right. So like there's some balance to be found, I would say, with these skills.
If you know that these are social rules, that like societal expectations that your kid might be struggling meeting, and it doesn't mean that the rules are great or your kid is bad. It does mean that it might be one cause of friction at school, which you probably need to start with talking if you have a good relationship with the kid's teacher or the kid's scoutmaster or the kid's ballet teacher. If you're hearing that there's problems with the kids at school, go to the teacher if you have that relationship at a time of their choosing. Get the fuller picture, which might include, Henry is touching everybody constantly, and I am seeing a lot of conflict. It might be that your kid can't keep his hands to himself. It might be your kid just sits in the corner and kids ask her to play and she doesn't even answer them. And it might be happening. And then in the case of like, Pluto's not a planet anymore, you can get the fuller picture from the teacher of like, I don't know why these two haven't connected yet, but Spencer like talks about planets all the time, but he's over here and Henry's over here. And maybe we could like figure out a play date for them. Teachers can be great resources for that when your kids are younger. You can't like force a play date between two 11th graders, but you can get an idea of like, where should my kid be investing their time? Is it maybe not playing soccer at recess with the kids who are good at soccer and are saying, don't play with us? Like maybe this can't be fixed, but there might be somewhere else your kid could invest their attention.
And one thing that you said there as like a precursor, but I think it's really important to dial in on, a variety of activities can help a lot of kids. So like a kid who doesn't fit in with like a very sporty school. I have a kid who's now, against my wishes, playing sports, but I definitely see some of these schools and I'm like, wow, I would hate to have a kid who goes to this school who wasn't super sporty. Like you can see that the whole school is just oriented around the sports team. And I mean, I think a lot of schools are like that in terms of like the popular kids or whatever, but your kid may have trouble fitting in if they're in a class of all super hardcore sporty kids, if sports are not their thing. But they might do really well in a robotics club that meets in town. They might do really well in scouts. I'm a scout mom, but I have found that scouts is a little bit, and maybe it depends where you are, but it's a little the island of the misfit toys. It tends to be. And I think that kids do best when they have somewhere that they thrive. I think that place can be home, but for them to sort of start figuring it out on their own. And I definitely have had teachers reflect to me like, hey, could we take this really strong interest in this topic? There's a club that meets. There's a car club that meets. And some of these activities are like a bunch. I have a kid who's super interested in corgis of all things. We've never owned a dog, don't have a corgi. They love corgis. And there's like a corgi meetup once a month in New York City. And it's not even for kids, it's adults, but like
For overinvested corgi owners. Right.
let's go down and play with the corgis for an hour, and they don't mind. They're super thrilled to have anybody who likes corgis around. And I think that helping to create a variety of spaces and places where your kid might thrive is extremely important, because I know for myself, I never thrived at school. And so it was important for me to have after school theater and places where I could be a little bit weirder and be accepted versus just spending all day every day like I'm the loser. I'm the one with nothing to offer because I'm terrible at sports.
And there can be new clubs. It can also just be a new playground that you don't usually go to, a new library story hour at a different town that you don't usually go to. And if you want to bring the win closer, I used to do this with one of my kids who was, a little slow to warm up. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't say socially anxious. I would say slow to join, slow to warm up. If we were going to the playground with the sandbox, I would bring like a couple of trucks in the stroller, not just one for this child to play with, but several options. And I would put them in the sandbox with my kid so that there was not going to be an issue of sharing. There are 3 or 4 trucks. Well, it's bees to a flower. Soon enough, there were other kids who wanted to play with the trucks. And then I let my kid practice sort of like, sure, you can have this if you want. And then all of a sudden they're playing trucks together. That's possible when they're 4. It's not possible when they're 14, but you can find them a club outside of school that might really match their interests. And it's different kids.
I have a couple of other good tips having walked this road. I'm going to share them when we get back.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today and let us surprise you.
And now, when moms are bad at making friends.
From the What Fresh Hell podcast.
The introvert.
Oh my God. School pickup, please don't let anyone talk to me. Where is my kid? Oh no, I think that mom who invited me to book club once is coming this way. Oh, hi honey, I'll just be in the car. Come meet me over there.
The awkward mom.
Oh, hello, fellow playground mom. Look, you've a small human person, just as I also do. Do you think that's enough information to build a lasting platonic bond with me? Okay, then, I'll take your frightened scurrying away from me as a no.
The too busy mom.
Oh my God, yes, we need to hang out. Looking at my spreadsheet calendar, I think I might be free for a quick
cocktail like next August around 4 p.m.
The just can't make normal conversation, Mom.
Don't talk about serial killer documentaries. Do not talk about serial killer documentaries.
3 minutes later.
And then it turned out he had a whole pile of bodies in his barn.
Where are you guys going?
The 9 hours of sleep needer.
I would love to come to Bunko night, but it starts at 8. And that's 30 minutes after my bedtime, so it's a hard no from me.
The oversharer. Oh, hi. You're Natalie's mom, right? How are you?
Oh, hi, I'm not great. Actually, my son has this horrible stomach thing, and he was throwing up all night in the bed. Barf. In the sheets. I'm talking everywhere. And my husband's boss is a piece of work, but it's not like he can just start looking for another job right now. He is in a very tough field. And I'm really starting to worry about my mom's health. She has this weird rash, and the doctors say it's fine. But sometimes these things seem innocent, and the next thing you know, you're dealing with the flesh-eating virus of the face.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Natalie's mom.
Oh, no, my daughter's name is Linda. I don't think we've met.
This has been When Moms Are Bad at Making Friends.
From the What Fresh Hell podcast.
Okay, so I have a reflection on this.
Okay.
That's a little bit complicated, and I don't want to misstep as I'm talking about it. But I think sometimes when you have a kid who struggles socially, your instinct is to want to kind of thrust that kid upwards socially by attaching them to kids you see as socially viable in some way. And I think sometimes you have to check yourself on that. And you have to say, like, my kid who only wants to talk about carburetors, that is this kid's complete fixation, needs to connect with this other kid who has a fascination about something, and that kid is not going to move them up the social ladder, but they are going to have a connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think it can be a little bit hard when you feel like the key, and I think that we bring a lot of baggage to this, that the key to being happy in middle school is to be right in the middle of things and to fit in.
The fat part of the bell curve, as you say, right? You're right in the middle of the pack.
In the fat part of the bill, like kind of invisible, but kind of floating along. And that not all kids belong in that space. And I think that you're not wrong, that to be one of the two kids who talks about carburetors all the time might continue making your child a bit of a target for the kind of bullies, like now there's two weirdos, even a bigger target for us. And that I think that you have to approach it from the adult point of view in terms of like, what's the best next step for your kid? Not let me kind of try to catapult my kid into where I think eventually they might want to be.
At all the best slumber parties.
Yeah, you might not have a kid who's going to all the best slumber parties. I think it's also important to calibrate, like, what is the damage being done here and what is the learning available here? And how do those two things balance? So I have had the experience sometimes of having a kid who is outside social norms by choice, by just how they are for different reasons. Happened to one of my kids at different times. And I think, okay, well, part of learning to be human is bumping up against the people who say you're weird.
Oh,
I don't like you.
I think so.
And so we don't want to completely remove that from the equation at all.
Right. That's not the assignment. Like, I remember I had a kid who had some, impulsive behaviors that were affecting some playground dynamics. And the teacher said that to me before when I said this all changes around 5th or 6th grade. That was a wise teacher who said that to me. Like 3rd grade, 4th grade, they don't care if you're like doop, dip, 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 while the teacher's talking. But 5th grade, 6th grade, they start to be, stop. You're annoying. Stop that. And that it wasn't, and her approach wasn't, and that must be avoided at all costs, but that's a very effective behavior changer in a way that teacher, good behavior stickers chart is not.
Possible, yes. And possible the crowd just moves on without your kid. Like, that's a scary reality. And I think that calibrating, like, are we learning or are we being injured? There's a line there that you have a role in keeping an eye on. Like, is this useful feedback for my kid? You don't want to get everything out of the way and never have them have a bad moment. But you do also not want it to become a thing of like your kid is afraid to go to school. Your kid is actively being, harmed and bullied all day at school because of their behaviors. And it can be hard to find that line.
So let's talk about socially anxious kids, 'cause that's sort of like a different set of concerns. We talked about it a little bit before that, you want to start with empathy and without judgment. It really is as hard for them as it seems to be. And there's a couple ways you can help with this. For younger kids, play date at your house first. One kid at a time. Dr. Mary Rooney came up with these suggestions that if you have a kid who's a very anxious host, having somebody come over and that feels like a lot for them, they can pull out sort of 3 things that might work ahead of time. I got out the chutes and ladders, I got out the stuffed animals, and then I got out this, craft. They're all going to be, and then when my guest comes in, I'm going to say hi, you're going to role play with them, and then I'm going to say, what would you like to do first? And then let them pick, and this is how it's going to go. And you give them a script. Kids like this can speak from some experience on this. They want to know what's going to happen next. It's the uncertainty that's so frightening. And so if you can give them this is going to happen and this is going to happen, a lot of signposts for the interaction, it might help them feel better. And another trick I have for kids who are socially anxious and have a hard time at birthday parties and stuff is go early. This is hard when you have a spouse who is always late, who was never on time for anything. But it helps if you have a kid who has a hard time joining the group, if they're the first person at soccer practice on Saturday mornings, if they're the second or third person at the birthday party at the Jumpy Castle place. It's like get there a little early and give them time to warm up in the place rather than be the last one there and it's almost time to open presents already and then they don't know how to enter that.
2 more things that I want to get to. Number 1, social skills groups and classes. They offer these classes a lot of places. And even if you're somewhere where there isn't a class available to you in your town, you may be able to find one online, Zoom. And I have had good luck with social skills classes. Another skill builder is talking on the phone to older relatives. Often kids have more trouble with peers. Peers are much more unpredictable than adults. And so that can be a good way to practice social skills. And you can inform the adults on the phone or in person. Don't forget feedback. Hey, you know what? Can we take a break? I have something I want to talk about now. So you can help the kid work on it as an adult and model and just really make it a little bit of an exercise with kids. Get Nana and Papa involved and say like, hey, when you're on the phone, just make sure like model turn taking and force some turn taking because they want to tell you about this thing. And you can say, I'm talking about a kid probably under 13, like, oh, you've been talking for a long time. Let me tell you a little bit about what, I want to talk about now. And that's a skill that like a peer is just going to walk away, but it gives them an opportunity. And I think also super important to model this for your kids who don't struggle with it. Have conversations at the dinner table that are like, who sits alone in the cafeteria? Is there anybody in your class who doesn't seem to have any friends? What's going on there? Oh, it's a kid who just moved here from another country and doesn't speak the language. Gosh, let's think about what that might feel like. Imagine if you suddenly got transported to Italy tomorrow and you had to go to class your first day. That would be really hard, right? I don't think you can force friendships with kids, but I do think there is a role. And I probably overcorrect on this because having had bad experiences with it myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to be friends with the weird kid. And it doesn't actually work. And sometimes the behaviors are difficult and scary for kids. But I think that I just don't want to leave the conversation without saying, like, we all have some role to play in this.
Mm-hmm. I want to tell everybody that if you're interested in these sort of skills classes and some more structured support for your kid, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. Sue Larkey, she actually lives in Australia, so you probably can't go visit her, but she has a lot of resources. She teaches kids who are on the autism spectrum, and she had this great breakdown of social scripts, which is like, say your kid is an issue and it's taking turns on the play deck. It's not touching anybody when they line up for music class, whatever their thing is.
You're such a New Yorker by saying play deck, but Keep going.
Play tech, yes. My children play on the roof here in New York City. You're right. Once you've understood in this episode, like, here's what they struggle with, here's where it manifests with the peers, then you can create a sort of poster. And she breaks down the 6 steps: the title of the social script, the coaching sentence, the secondary skill, the affirmation and conclusion. I'll put the link in the show notes. It seemed to me like a really good way. If you don't have access to a coach, to online classes, hopefully everybody can find online classes. But you see what I'm saying. It's a good way to wade into the water. A really good way to structure this with your kid, and then make it like, hey, let's talk about this. It must be hard when you've been sitting down for a long time to line up for music class and keep your hands to yourself and not be super wiggly. I get it. I'd be the same way. So let's talk about this. And then you talk through the steps together. You create this little poster together and you print it out, and then they look at it and they have literal explicit steps. For certain kids, for certain ages and stages, that's a great answer. They just want to be walked through it. Like we say, tell me like I'm 8 years old. Like, explain it to me like I'm 8 years old, how I'm going to keep my hands to myself.
The only thing I will add is everything is not an opportunity for learning. And I have dealt with this with kids who are struggling, that sometimes they just need to be like, this was terrible, and I have made the mistake, and I offer this to you because it has not gone well for me. Every conversation is like, well, what you should have done, and you could have this, and let's get out the scripts and practice. It's like, sometimes it's just hard, and like, you got to sit with them in the hardness. It's not always an opportunity to make it better and learn something new.
That's so well said.
Ooh, I feel like we could have done 4 episodes on this. I have a lot to say about it.
I know. It's a good one. There's so many good links. If this resonated with you, there's so many good resources. From Child Mind, from the ADHD dude, from this woman, Sue Larkey, that I just mentioned. I'm going to put it all in the show notes so you can like look at this and engage with these ideas a little more fully, because there are lots of good ideas. There are things you can do to help.
Speaking of engaging with things, friends, are you a What Fresh Hell Plus subscriber? I was just working on this month's episode in which Amy and I take the Myers-Briggs personality test and learn so many fun facts about each other.
It's the funniest episode I think we've ever done. And at least to me, I laughed the most. And it's only available to What Fresh Hell Plus subscribers.
You can only find out what kind of personalities we have. They are really funny, silly episodes where we just gab about pretty much complete nonsense.
Definitely not parenting. We try to make it off the topic.
Nothing parenting. You will learn almost nothing, but they are high humor, low information episodes that are extremely fun to listen to, if I do say so myself. You can go to our website, whatfreshhellpodcast.com, click on the What Fresh Hell Plus link, and find out all about how to become a subscriber on the platform you're already listening on.
Yeah, just keep listening where you're already listening. It also gives you all the episodes in our entire archive ad-free. I mean, we love our sponsors. Our ads are also very funny and informative. But if you just like want that whole archive and all the bonus episodes, check out What Fresh Hell Plus. Like Margaret said, on our website. It's also in our Instagram, link in bio. You can find it there and in the show notes for this episode.
Thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
So long.